Hello, this video today is for Audi TT first generation pixel repair for the center screen. And as you can see, we did receive the cluster from our customer complaining about the screen in the center, and what we just did is we did test it to confirm the condition of the screen, and now we're gonna disassemble it. It's 6 screws around the front bezel. And now there are only 2 clips on both sides, 1 clip on each side. And now you need to squeeze the housing a little bit, and the main circuit is gonna pop out. In order to remove speedo and RPM pointers, you need to twist them counterclockwise and gently pull them out. Just sometimes they're very easy to remove, sometimes, like in that case, they're a little bit, too like harder to remove. And in regards to the fuel and temperature gauges, you simply gently pull them off without twisting. Now you peel off the face overlay. And kind of little tricky part is to remove 4 pointer motors. As you can see, I'm using the flat head screwdriver. Be very gentle because the plastic is very old, like 17-year-old or 15-year-old, depending on the manufacturing year of your vehicle. I guess the newest you can get is 2006, which is 12-year-old in 2018. So the plastic could be very brittle, it's easy to break it. So take your time, be gentle, and in order to remove fuel and temperature motors, I am using the flat head screwdriver and like very tiny screwdriver, helping out to pull it off. Be very gentle, it's very easy to break the motor. In case you're gonna break the motor, we have them in stock and you can purchase one from us. The link is gonna be given in the description below. Also be careful not to damage the traces with the screwdriver, the traces on the circuit board. And now you're gonna need to release those brackets holding the little LCD screens. It's easy to do. Just use the pliers. And now gently pry them out. You do not need to remove them all the way, just a little bit to release the circuit board. Now there are 4 clips holding this front white plastic onto the circuit board. Release those 4 clips and gently remove this plastic. Now it's gonna be a little tricky part. First of all, you need to release the display glass from this white bracket, and now you will need to use hot air station in order to properly desolder the LCD screen of the circuit board. I am using some flux just to help the solder melt. Don't try to do that with the regular soldering iron. Most likely you will end up damaging the circuit board. So the only proper way is to use the hot air station, and even with that you will need to take your time preheating the board so the LCD display would come off easily. And since I'm using the flux, as you can see, I'm using the fume extractor because I don't want to breathe the chemicals. So if you do a lot of soldering like me, I would highly recommend you to use to purchase the fume extractor. And I'm gonna put a link in the description below for the one that we are using. And now I'm gonna retin the contacts on the circuit board. So some more flux, and I would recommend to use lead solder. Do not use lead-free solder because it's a crap. And actually, as a reminder to myself, it's always good to turn on the soldering iron. It's very hard to work if the soldering iron is cold. And now you're gonna see how the fumes are being pretty much extracted with the fume extractor. That's the one on the picture we do have here in our facility. So now I'm going to pre-tin the contacts. I'm using my cell phone as a flashlight just to shine through the circuit board, making sure there are no any bridges between the contacts. Okay, circuit board is ready. Now it's time to prepare the LCD display. I'm gonna tin the contacts. Take your time, make sure there are no bridges. And very carefully install the LCD display first of all into the bracket, or whatever you want to call it, and then very carefully bend the ribbon cable and align the contacts. Make sure to start the aligning from the bottom of the circuit board, because the number of contacts on the circuit board is higher than the number of contacts on the ribbon cable. So when you're gonna align the ribbon cable, you will end up with more extra contacts on the circuit board on the top side. So they're not going to be used because you started from the bottom. And make sure to use good quality flux. It helps the solder flow properly and it's gonna make the life easier. Take your time, don't rush, don't ruin the contacts, don't make the bridges. And now do yourself a favor and reflow the resistor right above the LCD screen. There is only one resistor you see right now on the video, and this one is the culprit for the backlight issues for the pointers. Sometimes the backlight is fluctuating for the fuel and temperature, and this resistor is the culprit. So just reflow it and there should be no more problems with the backlight. And even my flux doesn't need to be cleaned. I prefer to clean it just for the aesthetics purposes. I like the work to look neat, so all the flux must go. However, it's pretty safe to leave it there. It's not gonna harm. As long as the flux is not acid based. Okay, a little check, making sure everything is working properly. Inspecting the displays, inspecting the contacts, and everything looks fine. So right now, pretty much, we're gonna assemble it back in a reverse order. Very carefully put this white plastic back on, and making sure not to bend the ribbon cable too much. Make sure the little display screens are in exact spots, because if it's not laying properly, when you're gonna put those metal brackets in place, you can crack the screen. So triple check the screen is laying on its proper place. Now it's time to put the pointer motors back. It's much easier to do than to remove them. So simply carefully snap them back in place. The big ones does not require any tools. The little ones I would recommend to use like flathead screwdriver, just to push them very close to this metal base. Do it very gently. It's somewhat common for those clusters to have an issues with the fuel and temperature gauge, and most of the time it can be fixed with replacing those pointer motors. And like I told you, we have them in stock. You'll find the link in the description below. Sometimes, however, the issue with those little gauges are related to the firmware problems, and this is not easy to fix. So as you can see, we're putting it back in the housing. Make sure to hear the click from left and from the right side. That means that it's been placed in the housing correctly. And now it is time to install the pointers. And when you do install speedometer and RPM pointers, it's important to make sure that the cluster is off. Do not install those if the cluster is on. And remember, this is related just to the speedometer and RPM gauges. because when you do install fuel and temperature pointers, the cluster needs to be turned on. And make sure to align the fuel gauge pointer pointing on a little dot, a little bit below the red line, and the temperature gauge should be pointed right on minimal temperature. And when the cluster is off, now you can recalibrate the speedometer and tachometer, and as you can see, it's been recalibrated, so it's showing 0 when the cluster is on. And I did miscalibrate the temperature gauge on the first attempt, so I'm gonna realign it again. And the last step is to remove the protective tape from the display. And remember, when you do install the clear lens, the front cover of the cluster should be on, because otherwise you're gonna snap the fuel and temperature needles because they pointed too low when the cluster is off. And after both little clips clicked, you can put all 6 screws back in place, and the repair is completed. Once again, if you do not have hot air station, do not try to perform the repair. Most likely you're gonna ruin the circuit board and you need to replace the whole cluster. It's better for you to find someone with the proper skills, soldering skills and desoldering skills, and proper tools to perform the repair. So this video is coming to the end, and you're gonna find the list of the tools that we are using and the parts we are using for that repair in the link, in the description below. And thank you for watching. As you can see, it's not too hard to do, it requires some patience and preferably experience. Thank you and have a good day.